Thank you, David Bello. We both from the BCC. Hello, Michael.
Hi, Adele. Good evening.
How are you, brother? How are you doing?
I'm doing well this evening, and you?
Yes, yes, I'm good. Good, I'm awesome. I'm awesome. Keeping a
Awesome.
lot of
Same here.
yes, yes,
Great.
yes, yes, yes. How has your day been?
Well, my day has been good. Grateful to God for the gift of life, but much more importantly, just reflecting on COVID-19 and what will happen post COVID-19.
Very interesting. And it's a very interesting time we're actually living in. All of a sudden, this has started on the world preparing for it. As a matter of fact, I have a lot of friends who are saying that they were not even planning at all for this. And it's unprecedented. During the Second World War, the total number of deaths that we had was, I think, about 4,000 from the records. 4,000 people died. As at the last count all over the world, deaths have gone into tens of thousands.
Okay.
At least I'm sure right now, the toll is most likely about 50,000 now. That is a difficult place to be for the whole world.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow. It's interesting. But what do you project? How long do you think this entire COVID thing would last? How long do you think it would last?
Okay, so I'm not a health expert, but then again, I've been following the World Health Organization figures, and globally, we have 2.1 million cases confirmed, and just like you said, 146,000 thereabouts deaths. And if we look at the African region, we have a total of 616 deaths as at this evening. So, from my understanding of the numbers, the pandemic may still last into Q3 if it's not handled well globally, because we don't even know when businesses will be able to pick back up in terms of revenue generation. We don't even know what the impact will be on several sectors of the economy. So it still looks very bleak. But from my understanding of the numbers globally, it may extend till Q3 before we will really gain balance and momentum.
Wow. Q3.
Yeah.
That's some serious stuff.
Yeah, because there are possibilities that when we drill down to our nation, Nigeria, the lockdown may still extend till the first week of May. The CDC reported an additional 41 cases, and we never can tell if there are people that are affected by COVID-19 and they've not even been tested. So one cannot really project accurately. But even if things we get back to resuming to our various offices, it will take a lot of time. And from what economists are saying, what Nigerian economists are saying, Nigeria may as well be entering a recession, because the numbers don't look good. I was reading the papers, and the National Bureau of Statistics is going to be releasing the economic indicators for the month of March. We don't even know what the GDP growth will look like, So it's a lot of bleakness here and there, but we can only hope for the best, Adeoye.
Wow. Wow. Unprecedented time all over the world. About 50,000 people dead. That is serious. The global pandemic that we saw. In fact, there's been no time in human history that's like this, and we just hope for the best, like you said. Thank you for all that statistics and for that analytics. So companies should be preparing at least for May, but that is so. So what about the lockdown, the restriction of traffic and all of that? the flow stay at home order, you think we're going to get to May in Nigeria?
Possibly, yes. We may get to second week of May before the lockdown order is lifted. I'm not trying to be pessimistic, but the numbers don't really look impressive, to be very honest. And I was taken aback when the late chief of staff to the president was buried, and we could see the mammoth crowd at the burial. Social distancing was not observed. And I'm asking myself, there is a possibility that there are people who may have COVID-19, we never can say, So the lockdown may still extend till the second week of May. It may. And businesses should start thinking of, what will be their plans around ensuring that they remain afloat. So we may need to start thinking of what aspects of our BCP has not been working. How can we tweak it? Are we checking cash flow? Are we checking reserves and all of that to ensure that the business is a growing concern? So it may still extend till the second week of May, really,
Wow. That's something serious. Okay. We hope for the best. So my other question is, so what is the implication for businesses in terms of human capital generally and talent management across three sectors of society, across the three spectra of business classification? If you think of the small, medium, and large scale enterprises, what is the implication of this for talent and for talent management generally? What do you think about this, Michael?
Thank you, Ade, for that question. And my thoughts really around human capital development and talent management across your three classifications, small, medium, and large enterprises. The truth is, the small and medium enterprises have been the worst hit so far. Some of these businesses, they try to manage cash flow, in such a way that they can continue to remain afloat. But some of these small and medium enterprises have shut down, and there is no cash flow. There is no money to pay salaries and all of that. Some of the large corporations have huge reserves, particularly the multinational enterprises that have backups from their parent companies. So we may not see so much of a hit there, even though some of them have started dipping into their reserves. But the small and medium enterprises have been badly hit. So part of the things that organizations will begin to think about post-COVID-19 implications for human capital development we'll be seeing a shift from the way the current workforce is being managed. In fact, there is going to be the upsurge of the contingent workforce. A lot of companies are going to put the model of outsourcing and, ensuring that they outsource non-core aspects of their business, and then they keep their cost profiles as the best minimum. The implications for talent management, really, CEOs will begin to focus more on the employee segment that generates revenue. So that segment will become very important to CEOs and C-level executives. And for those set of people, the war for talent is going to be on the increase. So we are going to see post-COVID-19, some talents become very picky where they will work and all of that. So employee satisfaction, job safety and all of that, this will be critical concerns. But like I said, there's going to be the rise of the contingent workforce. Alternate forms of work arrangement is going to become the order of the day. And businesses need to start thinking of how they will be agile and flexible.
Wow. Okay. So if you think about thank you very much for that, Micheal. As a talent manager, so what do you advise the mid and you've explained about the small scale enterprises and how they will be hit. Does that mean that the small businesses will have proper talent crisis on their hands? Is that what you're saying?
Most likely, yes. Some of these small and medium enterprises are already even experiencing the talent crisis, and that is because some of these small and medium enterprises do not have the financial capacity to attract, critical talents that will grow their business. Because, like we had in some of our private conversations before tonight's Insta Live session, I did mention to you that part of the critical things in the employee value proposition is compensation. So a lot of the small and medium enterprises do not really have the financial capacity to attract the right talents that will grow their businesses. So they are the ones that are worst hit by it. Well, when we now come back to the war for talent, there's going to be a lot of poaching post COVID-19. You are also going to see a lot of movement of talent from one organization to another. And so you are putting some talents moving from one organization who cannot really afford them to another organization. But there are a lot of business implications, as we look at the subject of talent management. So some organizations will need to start refining their employee value proposition. They will need to start thinking about what is the impact on their employer brand. How do they position and project an employer brand that is attractive such that they can remain competitive within the industry that they find themselves. The financial services space is also going to be hit because a lot of talents are going to move from one bank to another. Another sector that is really going to see the talent crisis, the war for talent escalate, is the creative industry, where people don't give a damn, where they move from one place to another. And if you know the dynamics of the creative industry, it is he that blows the piper that dictates the tune. So we are going to see a rise in the war for talent. So organizations will need to start thinking of creative ways to attract talent to their business. So talent managers will need to start thinking differently. And like I have always advocated, one of the critical skills talent managers and human capital managers need to start developing is outcome thinking. So what is the outcome? What do the CEOs want to achieve? And then we reverse engineer back to begin to think like CEOs, such that we understand the mindset of the C-level executives, and then we can come up with creative ways to keep talents in the business.
Thank you very much for that. So, again, if you think about the total number of deaths we've had, especially in Africa here, it's not, by the grace of God, it will not be serious. Let's believe God in Jesus' name. Let's believe that the things that are saying about our immunity and our immune systems are all okay. But what do you think for the global economies, for the developed economies, for the regions like the United States and Italy? What do you think for talent management? I mean, you've got very highly skilled people who are very sick or who are literally dead, some of them right now. God be with their families and continue to comfort them. What do you think will happen to talent management and engagement? How do organizations quickly reskill to cope with the gap, with the talent gaps that will happen? Some of the gaps will happen from what you've said right now. So that gap would happen from people migrating to other companies, wanting a better life. There'll be some other gaps based on some people probably who are who are going to be very ill or who are already ill. How do we work? What can organizations do, knowing that there may be a very skilled person who cannot do their work function anymore? How will they cope? What do you think? What do you suggest that organizations begin to do now in this phase?
Okay, thank you, Adeoye, for that question. And really, that's a deep question. So on the global scale, there's going to be a lot of restriction around global talent mobility. And the sector that is going to be most hit is the healthcare sector. Even globally, there is a current debt, there's a current scarcity of talent in the healthcare sector globally. So we're going to experience a restriction. We're going to experience challenges around global talent mobility on that scale. And when I think about the impact for businesses on a global scale and what organizations will need to do, they will need to begin to rethink what their talent ideology is, what their talent philosophy is, and how they adopt or how they can manage the 6 B's of talent management. So they will need to begin to rethink whether there is a need to buy talent, whether there's a need to build, whether there's a need to borrow, whether there's a need to bind, bounce, and whether there's a need to bridge. Some organizations on a global scale may adopt models around borrowing talent from one business unit to another, such that we have top talent in one business and they have transferable skills that can be deployed to another section of the business. So the first challenge, like I said, we will have is the challenge around global talent mobility. So we're going to have a lot of restrictions around migration. We're going to have a lot of restriction around the employment of expatriates. Even in Nigeria, I sense that the National Immigration Service is going to be very strict around approval of expatriate quotas and all of that. So it means that our local content laws have to be reinforced and strengthened. So on a global scale, the healthcare sector is going to be worst hit, because in some of the developed economies, like what Italy is going through, they have a debt, they have a scarcity of skilled doctors who understand this pandemic and how we can adapt. So organizations will need to rethink what their talent management philosophy and ideology is. Do we really need to import talent? Do we really need to bring talent from outside the shores of our country? So it's important that we need to even think about, and the global impacts are far reaching. A lot of sectors globally are already being hit. The global tourism sector is already being hit. I remember when we were discussing a couple of weeks ago where you were at the Doha airport, and that airport was scarce. So a lot of industries globally are going to be hit. Even the global airline industry is also going to experience some serious war for talent, because some people are going to be moving from one place to another. And like I said, some of those industries are marked by who has the financial capacity to sustain those talents. So it's going to be an ongoing war, and there are projections from the IMF that some developing economies may not recover until late Q4 of 2022. So far-reaching implications, for global talent mobility, far-reaching implications for global talent acquisitions, far-reaching implications for companies who rely a lot on expatriates to begin to rethink local content and to begin to think their talent management philosophy, ideology, and talent strategies.
This is something serious. Thank you for that. The other thing I'd like to ask you is, so what do you think organizations can do to engage their talents? Because if there will be talent mobility issues, there will be the war of talent and the battle for talent. There will also be some talent, there's already talent attrition. There's already some talent attrition. There's already profitability issues within businesses. So because businesses must produce more with very less, how are they going to manage talent engagement? At what cost? How the organization will work on that?
So, Adeoye, I often say that talent engagement doesn't happen overnight. And that's why, as a talent management expert and one who is the only African that holds the Global Talent Management Leader certification by the Talent Management Institute USA, I often tell people who care to listen that talent engagement doesn't start in a day. Talent engagement doesn't start overnight. It is also something that ought to have started happening even before the talents joined the organization. So engagement actually starts from the candidate experience. It doesn't start when the employee joins the organization. So what's the candidate experience like? How does the candidate experience, how is the candidate experience designed in such a way that it can foster engagement? Because really that's where engagement starts from the candidate experience. And even up until the onboarding program, how are talents onboarded into the organization? Are they made to feel welcome? So engagement doesn't happen overnight. Even though there are frameworks for engagement, it's important to understand that talents are given premium value. So how is the candidate experience? How is the onboarding experience? How is the line manager relationship with the talent? And then do we keep promises we have made? You know, in the talent compact is two-dimensional. You make promises and then you keep promises. So have we been keeping our promises? You know, talents want to stay in the business. So really, talent engagement doesn't happen overnight. It's important to note that the engagement starts from the candidate experience. It goes through onboarding, and then we ensure that there's an enabling culture for talents to survive.
Okay. So the saying that the engagement life cycle must be end-to-end. It's pre-employment. It's a matter of your employer branding, your employee value proposition, and all of those, and all the way into how you manage the talent, into the life cycle of the talent organization, and the final exit and what happens post their exit. All right. Thank you very much for that. The only thing I'd like to find out is that so what's your recommendation for talents? For example, it will be very critical for us to be able to have ubiquitous talents that can do a lot with a little. So what's your counsel for talents generally? How should people live their lives in this season in preparation for the coming waves? Because what we are describing is very strong globally. There are some sectors that'll be hit. That'll be my next question. But before I go to the economies of the earth and what you think about different continents and all that, so what should talent do? What should talents do?
So really, the truth is, what talents need to do two things, Adeoye. They need to understand their business model and understand what is the core of their business. Secondly, they need to begin to acquire transferable skills. Because you see, post-COVID-19, CEOs will be looking for talents that are multi-skilled. So we need to start thinking and start asking ourselves, what skills will be relevant to my business post-COVID-19? Do a skills audit and then find out skills do you need to begin to acquire. Because you see, at the top of the CEO's mind now is business growth and sustainability. In fact, most CEOs are already thinking, is my business model currently sustainable? Can I continue to pay salary up until Q4 2020? Do I have the reserves? So a lot of CEOs are already thinking, how do we tweak our business model? So talents need to understand the value chains of their business. They need to understand what will be the core focus of their business post-COVID-19 and then begin to acquire transferable skills such that they can continue to remain relevant and they can continue to contribute to their businesses, because businesses will start focusing on their core. That's if they've not started doing so now at DOA. So they will start focusing on their core and they are going to move attention away from non-core aspects of the business. That's why I said when we started the conversation that there's going to be the upsurge of the contingent workforce. So outsourcing is going to be very strong in the days ahead. So CEOs are going to be looking for talents that are resilient, talents that have grit, talents that have transferable skills and are ready to weather the storm with them. It's often said that you don't know a captain in time of peace, you know a good captain in time of storm. So this is the time for talents to rise and show the real value they bring to the table.
Thank you very much. I have there are one or two comments. Michael, some persons are saying that your face is not fully in the camera. Somewhere they can't see your face very well.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Can you see my?
Thank you. That's Michael Ogu. Michael Ogu is the only GTML in Africa. That's a global talent management professional. Absolutely interesting conversation today. Thank you for coming, Michael. So my next question is, what are the skill sets that are transferable skills that talent can, what are examples, top 5, top 10, off the top of your mind? Then what are the top 5 to 10 industries that will be affected the most, and how do you think they'll be affected? That's actually about 3 things I'm saying, very large. Take it to one breath. Number one, what are the skill sets that are transferable that talents must be highly priced post COVID-19? What are the top industries you think will be affected, and how do you think those industries will be affected?
Okay, so thank you for that question. And the first question is pretty much tough to answer because the skills that will be relevant will be relative based on industry, really. It's easy to list skills, but really, will those skills be relevant? So I was doing an x-ray of some of the top skills that are relevant in the year 2020 as espoused by the World Economic Forum. And this is not to disdain what they've said, but some of those skills really will not be relevant in some industries. So the top skills will be industry. Talents need to understand the dynamics of their industry. They need to understand the dynamics of the market in which they play and really itemize what are those top skills that will be relevant. But for the sake of listing, the top 5 skills that have been listed by the World Economic Forum, the top 10, sorry, emotional intelligence is there, people management is there, creative thinking is there, disruptive thinking is there, and all of that. But my take will be the skills will be a function are already being hit. The hospitality industry has taken a huge decline. The end industries have also been badly hit. You know, the banking sector has also been hit. Financial services has also been hit badly. You know, these are some of the top 3 industries that have been hit globally: healthcare, hospitality, aviation, and financial services. You know, they've been badly hit globally, and even coming down to Nigeria, they've been badly hit. And so what I would advocate is that CEOs need to begin to look at how they can build resilient and agile workforces post COVID-19. Resilient are becoming critical skills, critical capabilities that talents need to acquire to remain value add in the post-COVID-19 era. So because it's telling us to someone just before the Insta Live session, and the person said, I really have no clue what is going to happen to my business. And just engaging the person, I said, so what's your business value chain and all of that? And he said to me, I don't understand. So if someone is to understand the value chain of their business, I would not be surprised if that person, and this is me not being negative, is actually asked to move out of the company. So this is a time talents need to be concerned for their businesses. They need to begin to develop an ownership mindset such that they can even begin to point to their CEOs other aspects of the value chain that can be harnessed for profitability.
Okay, thank you very much for that, Michael. Before I open the floor to other kinds of people who want to ask questions, maybe if we can take one or two guests into this into the online IG live studio so that we can just also people and ask you questions. As an African, knowing how we are in Africa and our demography, what trends should we expect for talent in terms of mobility and engagement within Africa? And I say that because it is apparent that Africa will be hit a different way from the way it's hitting them in Europe. So what are the things we should observe, we should be on the lookout for in Africa during this time and then post COVID-19?
Okay, thank you, Adeoye. So, as an African and one who is very Pan-African in my outlook and thoughts, again, I worry for the African continent, really, and that's because of late, we have relied heavily so much on having expatriate talent on our shores. Once worked in an organization where we had the expatriate quotas close to about 30% of the total employee workforce. And so what the far-reaching implications will be is that we will need to begin to develop strategies and models still zeroing in on the African continent. I think it's going to be a time for us to begin to embrace the AfTA, the African trade agreement, such that we can have mobility of talent within, the African frontiers to ensure that, we keep talent within the African space. My other thoughts will be that we need to start rethinking how we harness the relationship between the town and the gown. And I'm saying that because we need to start thinking of the future of our businesses. And if we don't start thinking of the future of our businesses, we will not be able to develop curriculum that will ensure that fresh graduates who leave their universities can easily blend in to the workforce. So we need to start thinking of the relationship between the town and the gown. So if we do projections 5, 6, 7 years from now, can we really say that fresh graduates who leave their universities will be able to blend in to their organizations? So these are some of the implications that we need to begin to think about and ensure that, no one is left out.
Okay, Michael, there's a phone not too far from you that's also observing us, that's logged on, and so that phone is feeding back into the main studio phone, what you're broadcasting with. So mute that one or let it be far from you so that we don't have that feedback. There is a phone that is affecting the feed into the transmission.
Okay, I've put the phone far away from me now.
Okay, thank you, brotherly. Thank you, God. I'm sorry, I want to say God bless you. That's me all the time. So the other thing I like to say, from what you're saying, you're also saying that we need to reduce the gap between the town and the gown, meaning that people should be empowered with skill sets that will make them ready for value delivery on the street. So for example, if you're a carpenter, you are a plumber, you do not need to, in quote, be a bachelor's degree holder. If you have the skill set to deliver the value in town, we should not, this unhealthy premium placed on certification, and then people are not ready for life. COVID-19 has just come to hashtag that conversation in our existence. We cannot afford to have too many human beings on the street of Africa that will not be able to deliver much value in terms of economic value for the economies of the earth. This is what you're also saying, right?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you for that. For the chiefs of HRs, for the directors of human resources and human capital across different sectors of the industries of the earth, Nigeria, Africa, and by extension of the world, what do you advise that they do at this time, particularly from talent engagement perspective, and also from the motivation end, engagement and motivation? What brilliant ideas can HR directors begin to think about? Because we know that there's war for talent already, and if someone or staff is talent, that person is in demand somewhere else. And talent, because of talent crisis, we want to move. So, what can directors or leaders of HRs do? Chief human or people officers, the strategy teams of the HR teams. What should they do, or what should they plan to do? What are the brilliant, bright ideas that they have, knowing that the businesses don't have a lot of money? And remember, they are already, businesses are trying to get customers. People don't want to spend because we are already all over the world in a type of depression. In Nigeria, we're also in a depression. My Christian faith wants to kick, I want to say in Jesus' name. But the reality is that the economic numbers are not going anywhere. So what can they do?
Okay, thank you, Adeoye, for that question. And it's really a question that while you were trying to craft, I was trying to understand where you were coming from. So if I hear you, issues around engagement and motivation. So at the top of my head, my direct answer to you will be they should be creative around retention strategies. But then again, they cannot craft creative retention strategies in isolation. So a number of things must happen. First, have HR directors done the segmentation of their talent pools? Do they know who and who are inside those talent pools? So there needs to be a talent pool segmentation. That's one. Secondly, HR directors need to sit down with their CFOs to understand the numbers, understand the cash flow issues, understand the reserves, and look at how far can the business remain in business if this pandemic continues up until Q3. But much more importantly, we also need to strike a balance between employer concerns and talent concerns. So there's going to be a lot of need for a lot of objectivity in coming up with whatever retention strategies that you want to put in place. So a critical concern that must be answered is capacity to pay. And much more importantly, not only capacity to pay, capacity to sustain such retention strategies, because CEOs will not want to lose talents, but then again, do we understand the financials? So if we want to put in a retention strategy, do we have the financial capacity to enact it? And can we sustain it? Is it sustainable? Do we understand where we are as a business such that when we're advising from a point of objectivity, because it's very, very important. We must strike that balance. So this is a time where HR directors need that skill to wear both hats and see things from both perspectives. You see from the perspective of the employer, you see from the perspective of the employee. Even I will advocate a third perspective. See from the perspective of an observer, so that you can gain clarity, proper clarity when you want to give advice. So sit down with the CFOs, check the numbers, understand the numbers. Whatever retention strategy you want to put in place, is it 100% cash backed? If it's not 100% cash backed, what percentage is cash backed? And do we have that capacity to initiate it now? And do we have the capacity to sustain it? You know, so these are the thoughts that run through my mind in ensuring that there is motivation and engagement. Because at the end of the day, motivation and engagement is equal to retention. So when people are motivated and they are engaged, we can keep them in the businesses.
Okay. Thank you very much, Micheal. Awesome time. It's been about 42.3 minutes of engagement, and time is gone, man. Hopefully, we plan to have a part 2 and part 3 of this discussion around talent management. Thank you very much, Micheal. Micheal is a peak performance coach, talent manager, experienced HR director, worked in different sectors of the economy, and remarkably intelligent, and the only certified talent management leader in Africa. Thank you very much for coming, Micheal. Before we sign out today, Micheal, I'd like to give viewers a slot to ask questions. So if you have any question, you can type it on the chat box. From this point, I will read it out for Micheal, or if you come to part of the transmission, you can ask to be added, request to be in the video, and I'll give you that immediate access. You will ask your question from Micheal, and then we'll take you out again. We'll ask about 2 or 3 questions before we say a good evening here. Any questions, dear listeners? Micheal is also the president of the AEHRP, Association of Elite Human Resource Professionals. Professional HR guy. Micheal, thank you very much for coming again.
Thank you so much, Adeo. It's always my pleasure to share thoughts around talent management.
Thank you, brother. So I have a question here from Omoto Short Tolu. Oh, Tolu, Baba. That's why I said Baba. I'm supposed to say Baba online. I was exactly what you. While I understand the straining costs of operations for most SMEs during this pandemic, do you think the current approach of companies in laying off staff, in laying off their employees in order to offset cost is wise? Micheal, you get the question? Thanks for that, Tolu. That was a question on the group earlier. Thank you for that.
Tolu, thank you for that question. And really, that question is a bit dicey. But then again, I will offer my perspective on laying off. So laying off is part of the talent management strategy that falls under bounce. So some organizations, for a number of reasons, we bound off the company, maybe for economic or cash flow reasons and all of that. So my perspective is there are other things organizations should do before layoffs. Layoffs should actually be a last resort. So questions that come to the top of my head are, have the C-level executives been forthright, been transparent with the books? Because I was giving counsel to a fellow HR colleague some weeks back, and I said, before you do layoffs, ask your CEO to show the numbers to people. It was a very small company. So show the numbers, let people see that we cannot continue to sustain. And there by themselves, they decided to take a 50% pay cut. By their projections, the company would have been able to pay salaries for another 5 months if they took a 50% pay cut. So a lot of questions coming through my mind. Have the CEOs, CFOs shown employees the books? Have they been transparent? Have they been fair? Because I like to see the employment relationship as some kind of marriage, a marriage between husband and wife. In the not so good times, we adjust. In the rosy times, we glow and grow together. So while I would not advocate layoffs immediately, layoffs should only be a last resort where there are no other options. And I have once worked in organizations where I've had to take a pay cut also. And that was guided by informations that the top level executives made available to us. Guys, we cannot continue to pay salary. Rather than sack some people, what would you advise that we do? And if it's a strongly knitted organization, some people will be that empathetic to ensure that, okay, the other colleagues have a job rather than people are laid off. So my opinion, it's not a wise decision at such a time as this. But then again, if I think like an employer will want to ensure that they remain afloat, but it should be a last resort. In fact, one of the things that my employment lawyer friends have started advocating is that organizations revise their employment contracts to put a force majeure. But that can be a conversation for another day. Is a force majeure clause all that is needed to solve these issues around talent management? Maybe that could be discussions for another day. But the layoff should be a last resort, really.
Okay. Thank you so much again, Micheal. Awesome time. There's a question from Larry Kamar. Okay. In terms of lockdown days, we have just a few minutes more. Can HR appeal to employees for these days to be used as part of their annual leave and get their full salaries or refuse and take a 50% pay cut?
Okay, thank you, Larry, for that question. Again, very tough and very dicey question. So I would say that, Larry, why don't you engage your employees in an open town hall meeting and ask them what would they really prefer? At such times as this, it's very, very important that we must start thinking beyond the immediate. So I'm seeing a comment from someone saying, show books, never. And I often ask people, if you were laid off today, what would you do? A couple of weeks ago, Rent Money laid off over 400 and something of their direct sales agents. And the truth is, a lot of our friends who work for Rent Money are without jobs. So in this part of what we do, there is no one-size-fits-all approach. There is no right or wrong answer. So Larry, I would ask that you have an open town hall meeting, folks. Some people may still want to go on their annual leaves. Some people would prefer a 50% pay cut. I think we should find a middle ground and look at what works best, for your organization. Engage employees. This is the best time to engage employees. There has to be a lot of communication, so we need to engage. In fact, the lockdown days, if it continues till second week of May, it's already more than some people's annual leave days. For some organizations that gradate annual leave days, for example, in the manufacturing sector that I spent the greater part of my career, junior staff have 15 annual working days, senior staff 25, management staff 30 working days. So if we look at it realistically, some people have already even exceeded their annual leave days. So if we're to use the annual leave days as a benchmark, it will be in negative variance. So I think we should just look at what works best for organizations and find a middle ground. If they still want to take their annual leave, then there is a second option of a 50% pay cut. If they don't want a 50% pay cut, there must be some mutual agreement that, okay, we are forfeiting annual leave days. You know, just this is the best time to engage people. You know, and like I often say, that there is no better time to show employees that you care for them, to show talents that you care for them at such a time as this. Thank you so much, Larry, for that and that question. I don't know if I've been able to provide proper perspective.
Okay, thank you so much, Micheal. We have other questions, but our time is fast spent. We will continue engagement under the flyer on my Facebook wall. Micheal is there. Micheal's Instagram handle is at the Micheal Ogu. I think it's A before E. At the Micheal Ogu as pronounced, THEMICHAELOGU. At the Micheal Ogu. So please follow him as a thought leader in talent management. Micheal will be here again for part 2 and part 3 within the next week and then the upper week. And over the course of the next few days, we will be looking at this COVID-19 and all the different angles for organizations and businesses here on IG Live. Please follow me to subscribe to my YouTube channel. My name is Adelia Boduni. That all the guys that are here. Thank you very much. Awesome time we have. Micheal, any last words for CEOs generally and business managers? Any last words just in a minute before we call it an evening today?
My last words will be, please let's show a lot of care and concern. Let's check with our employees. I've been getting a lot of feedback around mental health issues. Some people are depressed already. So we need to show care and concern, and let's check with our employees to ensure that they are keeping safe.
Okay. Thank you very much, Micheal. Awesome time. Micheal is a peak performance coach, talent manager, HR director, the president of Association of Elite Human Resource Professionals. Brother indeed. Thank you very much, Micheal. Awesome, insightful time. For all our viewers this evening, thank you very much for joining us. I'm Adelia Boduni, and I appreciate you all. You know, I do a lot. Thank you for tuning in. Tomorrow we'll have another guest to be announced. We're continuing on the series because we want you to be prepared, and we believe that at the end of COVID-19, humanity will triumph, and success is our portion. I praise. Thank you very much. Have a nice evening.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, Micheal. I sign out now. Thank you, Micheal. Thank you.